Active listening is a very, very important skill to have in when we talk about effective communication. Today's webinar, my goal is to basically highlight some of these importance to you and also highlight some of the key elements and skills that makes active listening what it is and why it's emphasized so much for our work as people who are providing EAP services. It is a key essential skill because people are going to be coming to you with their problems, and it's important for you to be able to listen well and to provide them with responses that make sense. So let's begin. Why this training matters so much. Active listening for EAP, like I was talking about earlier, is really, really, really important. The reason why it's important is because a lot of people are going to be coming to us during the time of distress, and they would require us to be able to understand them, not only from our point of view, but based on their experience and what they are going through. They wouldn't want us to basically listen with judgment. They wouldn't want us to basically try to solve their problems with biases that we have. They wouldn't want us to basically assume things without really listening attentively to them. So, like it's quoted here, the most basic of all human needs is the need to be understood and to understand and to be understood. The best way to understand people is to listen to them, right? Quite often, we think that listening is only listening to the words someone says, but it goes beyond that. Sometimes, in different cultures, people would say different things, but mean something else. People would not say what they feel or are experiencing and would expect the other person to read between the lines. So there are so many factors that goes into communication, and we are going to talk about some of these things in this webinar. Like it's identified here, 85% of therapeutic successes depend on the quality of the relationship. Why? Because if someone does not trust you, whatever you say, they don't trust it. And it's not going to go well. They wouldn't want to do, they wouldn't want to basically even listen to advice or even go with anything you tell them. So, listening and responding is a very, very key, essential thing that we need to really take, not take lightly, but take very, make it an essential point or an essential part of our existence or our practice. So, a little bit about myself. My name is Michael Asikuyabuar, and my background is in rehabilitation counseling, mental health addictions counseling, and disability management consulting. I've worked in different settings from mental health to addiction treatment to corporate, built so many different programs, managed different teams, and yeah, globally, I would put it. One of the key elements to my success as someone who's been able to navigate most of these things are as a result of my listening and my ability to understand people, making connections and really creating a space that allow people to trust you is key. What is active listening? Beyond hearing words, right? Active listening is a conscious effort to hear not only the words someone is saying, but understand the complete message behind communicated, including emotion, the message communicated, including emotions, context, and unspoken needs, right? So hearing is just the physical process of perceiving sound. So all the sounds you hear, all the things that are coming into your ear, those are hearing, right? Listening is a process and understanding what is heard. Is processing, sorry. Listening is processing and understanding what is heard. So listening is more than just hearing. Listening is you decoding what the other person is saying. Listening is also processing what the other person is saying. Listening is making sense of what the other person is saying. Now, active listening is a whole thing on its own. Active listening is fully engaging with the speaker's total message. So, some of the key components of active listening include paying full attention, right? Eliminating all distractions, nonverbal engagement, your body language. So, these are some of the things we call paralanguage. So, nonverbal engagement, such as body language, eye contact, tone of voice, and other mannerisms, right? Also, with active listening, you withhold judgment, suspending all your assumptions. You listen fully before you try to even make sense of what the individual is saying. Like you just need to listen without concluding what the individual is saying. So you pay full attention. You do not just jump in and give them a response or you jump in and cut them off. No. Active listening also includes reflecting, paraphrasing, or confirming your understanding to the individual. So, responding back to them and letting them know you are hearing what they are saying, right? Clarifying, asking questions when needed, summarizing after you've heard and you've asked the question, tying it all into one thing to check in with the individual and let that individual respond yes or yes but or yes and, right? Those are some of the important things. So when we talk about actively listening, these are some of the key components of active listening. Now we are going to break them into bits to basically make consume. So what are some of the barriers to active listening? What usually these are the things that get in our way, right? Understanding what prevents good listening helps us to overcome these obstacles. As people who are providing EAP services, it is important to really take note of these things that are likely going to be barriers, right? So, for instance, some of the internal barriers, mental distractions, and wandering thoughts. How many times have you had a conversation with someone you found to be boring and you noticed that you were basically drifting off to think about something as simple as what are you going to eat for dinner? What are you going to basically tell the friend who invited you somewhere and you are not able to go? Or sometimes we get distracted by what the individual says that gets us going in a wild goose chase, right? We are trying to make sense of what they are saying, and then we remember something, and then now we are lost in our thoughts. So this is one of the things that are internal barriers. They are internal distractions that we need to be aware of. Preparing our response while the client is speaking. The goal is not to, it's not an argument, right? So you are not required to give them a response. You are not required to immediately shoot out answers to them. You are required to understand them, let them know you are understanding what they're saying. So trying to find your response immediately is a barrier. Personal biases. So when we talk about personal biases, what we mean is like as someone is telling you a story, you may have encountered something similar in the past, but then your experience are very different. So you using your experience to basically process that individual's report is counterproductive, because then you are actually going to get it wrong because your experiences might be totally different from theirs. And assuming that because you did it this way and it worked, and theirs would also work because of that, is a problem. So avoiding that is going to be key because it's a big barrier. Emotional reaction to content. Someone is telling you something about their life. It's not pleasant. It's not nice. The way make your you would respond, be it facial expression, be it your body language, that could easily be a turn off. There's been a couple of times where people would be talking to someone and they say something, and that person's facial expression would immediately shut the other person down, shut them up, and they wouldn't say anything anymore. We have to avoid this. Learning to have usually what we call like a polka dot face is key to active listening, where you're not giving any reaction. There are going to be times it will be appropriate for you to give reactions, right? But especially when they are telling you something that would likely give an emotional reaction, it's important that you check it if it's the beginning stages of the relationship. Fatigue and burnout. If you know you're tired and you're really, really worn out and you're not ready to listen, you need to let people know. You do not need to engage in any communication if you're feeling fatigued, burnt out. Personal problems affecting focus. Yeah, you're running into issues like the whole day has been problems after problems. It's important to let your team know. Say, hey, today I'm not in the best of myself. Could someone help me here? You do not need to engage if that is the problem. External barriers, environmental noise, interruptions, phone notifications, and technology, time pressures, scheduling constraints, uncomfortable physical environment, poor audio quality in virtual sessions, cultural and language differences, right? So these are all external barriers. It's important to know some of these things and to position yourself to avoid some of them. And also, there are times that you are not going to be able to. Highlighting these barriers to the listener, or highlighting some of these barriers to whoever you're communicating with, so that that individual would adjust their expectation or would adjust the way they communicate is going to be key. For instance, if it's a noisy environment, that individual is able to increase their volume. If it is their phone notification, your phone notification that is basically creating the issues. You are able to say, you know what, I'm expecting a very important call, so please bear with me with these notification because I had to turn the volume on so when the call comes, I'm able to pick it. Things like that. Giving people the heads up is really, really important. Self awareness. The first step to becoming a better listener is recognizing your own biases. What does that mean? I would give you an example. Me as a therapist, I know that I carry a lot of clinical understanding of things. So I'm likely going to generalize or switch into the clinical sense based on what people are going to say or do around me, and I have to catch myself, especially if it's a relationship that is non clinical. I need to remind myself, hey, you're not in a clinical role. Just enjoy this moment and stop trying to be a therapist. There's not where you do your therapy. So, reminding yourself and knowing, being aware of some of these things are key. They help me to engage in productive, meaningful conversations without being clinical or being too focused on pathologies or, yeah, and also fallacies, right? So, reflection exercise. I want everybody to think through your recent interactions. Which barriers did you encounter, and what were some of the things that impacted the conversation? The solar framework. This is usually 101 for counseling when if you're going for a counseling, mental health or psychology counseling degree. These are some of the initial 101 things you're taught. So I'm going to teach everyone. The solar framework. The solar framework is just an acronym developed by Gerard Edgan. EGAN, to help professionals remember key nonverbal attentive behaviors, right? So the S stands for sit or stand squarely, meaning you should sit with an open posture, creating a warm atmosphere, right? Letting the person know you are ready to basically have a conversation with them, like facing them, not like in a lackadaisic way, but facing them, looking into their eyes. And for accessibility reasons, sometimes the person may not see, but letting them know you are sitting and facing them and you are ready to have that conversation, right? The O, open posture. Avoid crossing arms or legs, which signals that you are in a defensive mood. Or even like, some people may slouch. So all of those things, depending on the culture in which you are. And we will talk a little bit about culture aspects of these two as we go, because there are going to be certain cultures that some of these things may not be exactly carry the same meaning. So we'll talk about some of those as well. L, for lean forward. Show your eagerness to listen to the person. So slightly lean forward. These are things, if you're doing in person, it carries out. But even if you are in a virtual setting and the video is on, these are some of the things that you would want to carry along as well. E, for eye contact. Maintain appropriate eye contact. In the Ghanaian culture, it's a sign of respect, right? Respectful eye contact. Kind of engage while being mindful of the cultural norms. It's really, really important for you to kind of navigate those things very carefully. And then relax. Be natural, be comfortable in your posture and tension, like not creating any sort of like rigidity, making the person feel uncomfortable, or even making the person feel like, hey, this person, could I tell them my problems? So that is the solar framework. It's basically creating an atmosphere that allows the individual to feel comfortable and trust that whatever they're going to be telling you is going to be used appropriately. All right. So, active listening techniques. I will tell you this. I wasn't like a good therapist before I started grad school. It was after I started learning these things and actually putting them to work, I started really beginning to even see the benefits, right? So the only way you become really a good listener is if you practice these things. The very first one is paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is basically restating the message in your own words to confirm your understanding, right? So someone says something and you listen, and then after they are done, you jump in and then you say, so based on what you said, this is my understanding. An example is what they've put there. Someone goes like a client says, so I'm so overwhelmed with work deadlines and my mother's illness. I can't sleep. I am napping. I am, yeah, snapping at my family, right? So they are getting angry at their family. So you, the one hearing, listening to this individual, you go like, it sounds like you are carrying a lot right now, managing work pressures while worrying about your mother's health. And this stress is affecting your sleep and relationship at home. So you reflect back that way, the individual is going to go like, yes, yes, yeah, clearly demonstrating that you've shown them that you are actually listening to them and you're hearing them, right? Paraphrasing is basically using your own language to explain what the person said. So you reflecting back in your own words what the person has said. So very well, very good. Reflecting the feelings, right? Reflective listening, we include reflecting the feeling. And then there's another one, reflecting on the content. So would explain. So reflecting on the feelings, right? Identifying and naming the emotion you hear behind the words. So for the first example, that person is feeling overwhelmed. That person is feeling, you are able to use an emotional word. So you're feeling stressed, right? So even though that person did not say that feeling word, you are able to reflect to that sentiment, that emotion that individual is carrying. That actually gets that person to trust you even more, because not only were you listening to what they were saying, but you're also listening to actually what they are experiencing, the emotion that is also coming out of those things that they told you. So, an example is my supervisor keeps piling more work on me while others leave early every day. And then the reflecting to the feeling the person used was, you're feeling frustrated and perhaps unappreciated for the extra effort you are putting in, right? So clearly, this is uh, 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 you demonstrating to the person that you are listening beyond what they are saying. You are also hearing the emotions that they are experiencing, right? Number three, ask open ended questions, right? When someone is telling you something and you want clarity, it's important not to ask them a yes or no answer. It's important to ask them an open ended question so that they are able to tell you more. So, things such as best ways to go about this is, can you tell me more about this particular event? Could you tell me more about this situation? Could you tell me more about this incident, right? How did it make you feel? So they are able to tell you a little bit more about their feelings. For instance, when this person did this or said this to you, how did it make you feel? So that they would elaborate. They would go in deep to tell you exactly how they felt or how they are feeling, right? What would a good solution look like? So that gives that person an opportunity to basically leave the problems and begin thinking about what the solutions would look like or what their goals that the reason why they are talking to you, they would give you an idea what they would want to get out of that conversation. So it's really, really important to use open-ended questions, right? Um, I know this is like self-explanatory, so I'm not going to do an exercise there. Number four, clarifying. Clarifying is where you're seeking additional information to ensure accurate understanding. Example is someone say something, the way they said it, there's a lot of ifs and buts in there, right? But then you are not really sure. And you also do not want to just pretend you understand because then you'll be actually doing a disservice to the person you're talking to. So it will be important for you to ask clarifying questions. So, an example would be, oh, so when you say this, could you tell me more? What exactly do you mean when you say this? Right. So, for instance, the example, when you say things are bad, can you help me understand what you mean by things are bad? Right. You don't want to be the one filling in the blanks for the person. You don't want to assume that this person is saying things are bad because they don't have money. Because someone is not just because they don't have money, they are saying things are bad. Things are bad because of a lot of different things, and you don't know. So it's important that you ask clarifying questions. And then another way to navigate this is I want to make sure I understand you correctly. Are you saying that? And then you follow with what the person said, and then your explanation, your understanding of what that person is saying. And that person will be able to say, yes, yes, and will give you a little bit more, or would say no, and would basically correct you. So clarifying is really, really important. It's also signals that you are actually listening to the person. There are going to be times you need to be very careful how you navigate clarifying, because if someone is experiencing serious mental health issues and they are not doing so well, the way you clarify things might actually come off to them as you're questioning them. So you have to navigate it very, very, very delicately in a way that they do not misinterpret the questions you're asking, and you have to ask them in a manner that creates a safe space or makes them feel safe and welcoming to basically give you more information. Number five, summarizing. Summarizing is really, 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 really important. After you've done some of these four things, before you proceed, and even for people who speak very like long-winded, these are some of the best ways to interject, like step in Because if you are not careful and you allow them to say a lot of things, then you would be lost because you can't keep a lot of what they've said in your head. This is also a best way that if you're someone who is neurodivergent, you are actually able to really process the information that they are giving you and actually be able to remember some of it and you don't lose it all, right? So, summarizing, bringing the main points together, the theme of what has been discussed. So, an example would be, for instance, you are able to say, "Oh, so just making sure that I've got everything we've talked about. So let me do a quick highlight of all the things you've told me." And then you go like, so based on what we've talked about, you said this, and you feel this way, and these are some of the things that I asked, and you responded with this. So you summarize it all, and that person would say yes. And sometimes they would even add to it if there was something you forgot, right? So summarizing is really, really, really important. It's something that actually helps you so you do not lose your train of thought. You also do not lose everything that has been said. And you make this person feel that whatever it is that they're talking to you about actually makes sense. So, summarizing is really, really important. Validating, acknowledging the client's feelings and experiencing as legitimate and understandable, right? It doesn't mean that you are saying what they did is correct, or it doesn't mean that you agree with them. It is just you validating that these things happen. The feelings they are having, it's 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 accurate, right? It's accurate for people to feel that way. You're not saying that just because they are angry is right, right? You're not saying that. You're just saying that anger is a feeling, and sometimes people experience it, and it's natural, right? You validate that after you are able to go ahead and work through those things with them, right? Oh, validation is where a lot of the therapeutic work happens, right? Where you create the space for that person to feel like whatever it is that they're going through, we are able to help them resolve and we are able to help them work through it, right? So these are some of the things that are really, really important. Uh, the last one is using minimal encouragers, right? So brief verbal and nonverbal cues to show you are following along. So things such as, oh, nodding your head, and then sometimes saying things like, and what happened? Tell me more about that. Hmm. Okay. So using little and encourages like that actually helps the individual know you are actually listening to them and for them to feel that the space is for them and they are able to go on with their conversation, right? So these are some of the uh, uh, practical techniques. We Next week we will do a part two of the active listening. But a takeaway for everyone is I want everyone to practice some of these things. In our next part two, I would ask people to basically give me examples of things they did to reflect their practice of these 7 elements in active listening. I hope this was a meaningful use of your time and hope to see you all again